Lewis Hamilton has been getting trounced this season. He's down 5:16 against Russell in qualifying. He's been knocked out of Q1 twice in the past 3 races, and his usual Sunday race form has not been quite up to snuff. Hamilton and Russell have been super closely matched during their time at Mercedes, but this year Russell has pulled ahead in just about all aspects. Week in and week out, he has complained about the drivability of the car, and just looks like he can't figure out what is going on. The question is whether Hamilton is on a permanent decline in his career and doesn't have the magic anymore, or is it truly just a problem with Mercedes? The first races of 2025 at Ferrari will answer all of these questions. Let's talk about that and more. Hello everybody, my name is Michael and welcome back to Last to First. Before we get into the major talking point of this video, I just want to give a big shout out to everybody who liked, subscribed, commented, and watched my most recent video. It's been my most successful video so far, and I am most grateful for all of your guys' support. It's been a really nice show of support from everybody, so thank you all for that. And if you're interested, if you like my content, please give it a like and a subscribe. It means a lot to me. So on top of what I want to talk about with Lewis Hamilton, there's been a lot of news to come out in this past week while we're waiting for the last triple header of the season. First off, I want to talk about the fact that Sauber has confirmed they are signing Gabriel Bortoleto instead of Valtteri Bottas for the 2025 season. And this has been ongoing for a little while. It had been rumored that this was going to be the case, but now it is official. And he will be driving alongside, of course, Hulkenberg in 2025. And after much speculation and much time, Sauber decided to go with youth over experience in this scenario. The first question that I thought to myself is, was this the right call for Sauber? And I think you could see it both ways, to be honest. I think both having experience and having youth on their side will certainly be beneficial. I initially thought it would make more sense to go with Bottas and Hulkenberg because I feel like they really do need all the experience that they can get to claw out of this absolute pit that they are in anticipation of Audi taking over in a couple years' time. And I thought it would make perfect sense to have all that experience. It's a safe pair of hands in Hulkenberg and Bottas. Both are extremely good qualifiers and both are very capable of scoring some points. But thinking about it, it does make sense to not have Bottas in there since they already signed Hulkenberg. They are similar enough drivers. Both have a lot of experience, and they are going to get a lot of the benefits of having an experienced driver with Hulkenberg in the team as well. So do they really need two of a similar driver, both with a lot of experience, or do they just need one and then have another driver that is fresh and new to Formula One on the other side? So I can see why both sides would make sense. Ultimately, of course, they did decide to go with youth, and I can see why, because of all the hype of recent times with the rookies like Behrman, Antonelli, and Franco Colapinto. It looks like there really is a big changing of the guard right now, and some of these rookies that are coming in seem to be completely fit and ready for Formula One, and they're immediately making a big splash and having big impacts and making good results for teams. So it makes sense that Sauber would want to dig into some of that cash pot there and hope that Bortoleto will be their answer and that extra light of fire that they need to start scoring some points and start getting up the grid. What I think is quite interesting as well is that Sauber does have a couple drivers under their books that they decided to not go with. They decided Bortoleto over them. And of course, that's Teo Pourchaire as well as Felipe Drugovich. And yeah, ultimately they decided that Bortoleto had more upside and more potential than either of those two other drivers, which is unfortunate for them, but they must have seen something in the data, something in their workflows that they weren't overly impressed with. Otherwise, they would have chosen one of them. So instead, they went the hard route, the long route of getting Bortoleto out of the McLaren contract and signing him probably for multiple years. So it will be extremely interesting to see another rookie in Formula One next year. Of course, Bortoleto is leading F2 right now, and he has been having a really strong second half of the season. So we'll see if that pace can translate into Formula One as well. It's kind of a weird Formula 2 season because a lot of the grid is kind of of scrambled up, and some of the drivers that are going to be in Formula One or are doing very well in Formula One right now were pretty low on the order of the championship picture in F2, but they are performing extremely well. So we'll see what Bortoleto can do next year. Now, the second question I have is, was this the right decision for Gabriel Bortoleto? And I think it most definitely was. There was a lot of talk about him maybe just staying with McLaren, and maybe that was, and talk about that being the right decision. But I think if you get the opportunity to get into Formula One, I think you have to take that opportunity. Sitting on the sideline is almost a guaranteed way to not make it into Formula One, unless you're like the Oscar Piastris of the world that people aren't going to forget about in a year's time. So I think it makes perfect sense for Bortoleto to get on the grid, get in Formula One. I think it's better to be on the grid, even with a crap team, than to be a reserve driver for a great team. I think it made more sense for him to get on the grid in some team than to not. And it doesn't look like there's going to be any changes at McLaren for quite some time, even though it will be interesting to see how that team plays out over the course of the years. But yeah, it'll be good for Bortoleto. Get on the grid, show what he can do. It's going to be tough for him to really make an impact because Sauber is so bad, and that's part of the reasoning for people thinking that maybe he shouldn't necessarily have gone there. But I think all great drivers stand out, and I think if he is great, he's going to be able to make an impact, and he's going to show that. So I think it was the right call for Bortoleto. And of course, it made perfect sense for McLaren to release him from his contract. They are pretty sealed up with both of their drivers for several years to come, and have two extremely good drivers. And McLaren, unlike Red Bull, don't have a second team to put their drivers in, so they might as well cash out and get some extra money from giving Bortoleto to Sauber. My last question is, what does this all mean for Valtteri Bottas and his F1 career? And I think it means that his F1 career is unfortunately done for him. He hasn't been at the top of anybody's list for some time now. He has been on a few teams' lists, but maybe their second, third, fourth pick. And it is looking like he's going to go be the reserve driver at Mercedes and go back home to Mercedes. But I don't think that's going to open up any opportunities for him later down the road, unfortunately. I think he most definitely can have a successful racing career elsewhere as well if he chooses to do that. Plus, he has many other business adventures as well. But I think his time in Formula One is going to be over. He's had a really great career, won a lot of races, but I think this is going to be the last time we see Bottas in Formula One this year. Now, the next bit of juicy drama that is still ongoing this week is the Grand Prix Drivers Association, the GPDA, their statement that they put out to the FIA. And it goes, as is the case with every sport, competitors must abide by the referee's decision, whether they like it or not. Indeed, whether they agree with it or not. That's how the sport works. The drivers, our members, are no different and fully understand that. Our members are professional drivers racing in Formula One, the pinnacle of international motorsport. They're the gladiators, and every racing weekend they put on a great show for the fans. With regards to swearing, there's a difference between swearing intended to insult others and more casual swearing, which I might argue that sometimes in the car they are maybe intended to insult others when people are driving crazy, but nonetheless, such as you might use to describe bad weather or indeed an inanimate object such as a Formula One car or a driver situation or a driving situation. We urge the FIA president to also consider his own tone and language when talking to our member drivers or indeed about them. Shout out Mohammed bin Sulayem, whether in a public forum or otherwise. Further, our members are adults and they do not need to be given instructions via the media about matters as trivial as wearing jewelry or underpants, which yeah, shout out the FIA. The GPDA has on countless occasions expressed its view that driver monetary fines are not appropriate for our sport. For the past 3 years, we have called upon the FIA president to share the details and strategy regarding how the FIA's financial fines are allocated and where the funds are spent. And they continue to go on about the negative image of the financial fines and how they don't know where the money goes. But overall, just a really spicy but professional statement, and really just the drivers pushing back on the stupidity of the FIA and the crazy things that they've tried to clamp down on. It's really good to see such an official public statement of intent of the GPDA going against the FIA, because they've been doing some pretty questionable things over the past year in particular. And yeah, I thought the statement was really great and professional. It hit the big pain talking points this season. Mohammed bin Salim's questionable statement about drivers and rappers, the jewelry, the underwear, swearing, monetary fines. Yeah, all of the big points that have just been like, what is the FIA doing? And there still has yet to be no response from the FIA. I don't know if they will say anything or if it'll just be behind closed doors. I'm surprised they haven't said some type of statement saying that they are reviewing it or going to have a conversation with the GPDA. But yeah, nothing to my knowledge has come out from them as a response. And I think it's just one more thing to show how much of a disaster the FIA has been this year, and the FIA particularly under Mohammed bin Salim's regiment. And they just continue to do questionable things and create more and more of a rift between the FIA and FOM. Another big piece of news is Audi is potentially going to sell a partial stake to Qatar's sovereign wealth fund. Now, this was quite the surprise that came out this week. They are likely to sell just a minority stake to them, and Audi will still have controlling rights, but it was pretty surprising given that Audi did announce earlier this year, I believe it was, that they were going to be taking over 100% of Sauber rather than 75%. So that's interesting that they are already planning to sell a little bit of the stake in the team, and they're probably doing it in a bid to recoup some money from the significant investment in Formula One, and they've put a lot into it, more than they thought. And I think it's more of an indication of that rather than them attempting to exit F1, but maybe not. Maybe they are looking to get out. Nobody really knows yet. But it is still very concerning because big manufacturers are known to pull out of F1 at a moment's notice. We think back to, who was it? Honda, of course, Toyota. Some of these big teams like this have just pulled out of F1, and yeah, they put so much money into it, and then they pull out and are guaranteed to lose that money. So it's very possible that Audi could end up pulling out even before they get going, or maybe even just a few years into them being into Formula One. But there's other surrounding bits that are leading to some concern, such as VW Group, who owns Audi. They're having a lot of layoffs. And of course, there have been a lot of significant management changes since Audi announced its F1 entry. And when there are significant management changes on these big companies, that could really change the direction of where their investments go. Like, do they want to invest so much into Formula One, or is it better spent elsewhere and making sure that their car business still stays strong? They are having to invest a lot more than they initially thought. Between the higher wages in Switzerland, where the team is partially based out of, as well as just the economic picture of the world and just how much it takes to build up an entire F1 team, all of it's taking longer and costing more than they had initially thought. And it's going to take way more time, energy, money, and effort to get competitive than they thought, because Sauber is currently crap right now. So there's definitely been some concerning things coming out of the Audi project. I really hope that it does succeed, because it would be cool to see Audi in Formula One and see them do well, but there are a lot of concerning things that are coming out. So only time will tell what happens. I think they will be okay. I think they will get into Formula One, and I think it will take a long time to build up, but I think that we will see them around for some time. All right, so let's get on to the big talking point of this video, and that is, of course, Lewis Hamilton and his recent performances. The big question that I've had for some time now, and particularly after the Brazilian Grand Prix, is Hamilton in a decline, or is it just a problem with Mercedes? Hamilton and Russell have always been extremely close in their time in Formula One in the past few years. In 2022, one can argue that Russell being so close and beating him on occasion was really down to Hamilton doing a lot of experimental setups, because Mercedes was trying to figure out these regulations, which of course they still have not figured out. But yeah, that seemed to really negatively impact Hamilton's performance, because he was going so far in either direction to do some experiments. He was having a lot of porpoising problems and caused a lot of problems in 2022, but despite all that, he still did wind out on top. 2023, we saw it become even closer in qualifying, and we started to see Russell start to crawl ahead a bit in qualifying, but Hamilton almost always had the race advantage and the general pace advantage in the races. He was better on his tires, and really still is better on his tires, and just really knew and knows how to control a race. But moving on to 2024, Hamilton has been more significantly significantly off in qualifying, and he's often been off Russell in the races as well, which is not like his time has been with Russell at Mercedes. No one can argue he had valid excuses in 2022 for being so close to Russell, and 2023 can be put down to bad Mercedes performance and Russell just plain being good, but I don't think there's really any excuses this year. I mean, there does seem to be a problem with the style, really not gelling with these ground effect cars, but he was okay in 2022 and 2023, and other great drivers can adapt. Of course, the Verstappens, the Leclercs, they seem to be doing just okay. Lando Norris, of course, as well. And yeah, so people, the drivers certainly can adapt if they are good enough. That poses a question of, are we seeing a limitation in his ability to adapt, or is he maybe just losing his edge and losing that ability to adapt? He's always been extremely adaptable throughout the many rule changes he's seen throughout his career. I mean, of course, the changes in 2014, 2009, 2017, and different miscellaneous changes throughout that time. And of course, he still did do okay in 2022, but this year he seems to be really struggling in particular. You have to wonder, is it just a mental hurdle of him just needing a change of scenery? Now, think about this. Imagine you're at a job, and instead of your normal 2-week notice for the job, you give a year's notice. How would that play on your mind, knowing you have an entire year at a company that you don't want to work for anymore, and you're going to be stuck working with them for a year? And then now we're only a couple months away from him joining Ferrari. I'm sure he's going to be really thinking ahead to better times at Ferrari, thinking ahead of greener pastures in the future. So that must be playing, some type of role on his mentality, you would like to think. On top of him deciding to move to Ferrari a year ahead of time, as well as just him wanting a change of scenery, I think we did start to see some potential rifts grow between him and Mercedes over the past year or so. In 2023, he felt that the team really didn't listen to him with some of the changes that needed to happen, and he felt that he wasn't being heard, which is surprising given his stature in the team, but I'm sure that certainly had an impact. And now we're starting to see some other potential rifts between him and Toto Wolff about the timing of the contract announcement, as well as the deal that they had with Mercedes, Toto Wolff and Hamilton. Toto Wolff is saying they only wanted a 1+1 because they know everything comes to an end, so maybe they were already planning to not keep him for the extended long-term future. Maybe Hamilton knew that as well. I guess he would have to some degree, knowing that he was just given a 1+1. But yeah, start to see a little bit of cracks throughout the year, and I think that certainly will be having an impact on his performances this year as well. All of this is why I think the first half of 2025 with Hamilton at Ferrari is going to be absolutely key to answering these questions. It'll certainly take some time for Hamilton to adapt to the Ferrari car as well as the Ferrari team. He's been with Mercedes for a decade now, and generally with Mercedes even longer than that as an engine supplier at McLaren. And yeah, it'll take a long time for him to get used to that, for him to start gelling with the team. He's going to have a new race engineer as well, and there's going to be a lot of big changes. But I think we're still going to see very quickly if he does have the natural speed that he's always had. I think we'll see that very quickly into the season. I think his mentality should be very refreshed, and he's going to be hungry to adapt to Ferrari and show he still has it. So there's going to be a lot of things that should be going right that will help him to gain back some of his speed and some of his race pace. So I think all of those are big reasons why we will know very early on in Ferrari if Hamilton still has it or not. Of course, it's going to be an incredibly good test for Hamilton up against Leclerc, who is an even better qualifier than Russell is. So that will certainly show a lot. And I would say Leclerc is even better in races than Russell as well. So that'll continue to show a lot. If Hamilton is able to beat Leclerc in qualifying and or the races, then that's going to show he definitely still has it. A lot of this is giving me a lot of Daniel Ricciardo vibes, like Ricciardo leaving McLaren and going to RB. If Hamilton shows up to Ferrari and absolutely smashes it, then we know it was a genuine problem with Mercedes. if he continues to struggle at Ferrari as well, then I think we know it's probably more of a Hamilton decline than anything. Now, let's not go in too much of a spiral of hating on Hamilton. Let's not forget some of his past performances just in this year alone. While his recent run of form has been pretty challenging, let's not forget that when he's had the machinery, he's been pretty much his normal self. Of course, the British Grand Prix, he won on pure merit and pure pace and excellent tire management, which was absolutely vintage Lewis Hamilton. In Spa, he looked in control, very quick, and had the race in the bag. He looked like he was set to win regardless of Russell's disqualification. If the team told him to push more or put him on the one stop like they did with Russell, he certainly looked extremely quick there. When the car is underneath him, he still puts on a performance and still brings some of that Hamilton magic. This year, we have seen that Hamilton still has some really excellent peaks, but maybe some of his consistency has gone downhill. So I think at Ferrari, we'll see if maybe he still has the peaks, but some of his relentless consistency is gone, or maybe all of it's gone, or maybe he still has all of it underneath and he will show that at Ferrari. So only time will tell, but I think that's going to be one of the most fascinating storylines of 2025. Wow. So even on an off week, I feel like there is always so much to talk about in this crazy 2024 season. Lots of fun stuff going on, and it is so unfortunate that the season is coming to an end. We have 3 races to go, and they're going to come in quick succession, going back to back to back. So I just want to say thank you all for tuning in again. Please give the video a like and a subscribe if you are interested. I appreciate all of your support. You can also follow me on social media. I'm on X as Last to First Real, first spelled F1RST. I'm on Instagram as Last to First. I'm on all of the major podcast platforms as Last to First, and of course on YouTube as well as Last to First, first spelled F1RST. So thank you all for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you all next time in the world of Formula One.